In this video, you'll uncover 5 subtle but powerful signs that someone is already living with the fallout of how they treated you. Not publicly, but privately, in their own mind, in those quiet hours where truth echoes the loudest. This isn't about vengeance. This is about clarity, because truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's silence. And nothing weighs more than pretending you're okay when you're not. But karma doesn't care how polished your Instagram looks or how loud your laughter sounds in a TikTok. It goes deeper. It speaks through discomfort when the audience is gone. Sign genre 1. They're suddenly acting like life couldn't be better. You know the type, the one who ghosted you, who twisted the story to make you the villain, who broke your trust and walked away like it meant nothing. Now suddenly they're glowing, posting non-stop, laughing in places you two never visited, smiling beside people who had nothing to do with your story. If you're not careful, their curated highlight reel might fool you into thinking, wow, maybe they're really thriving without me. But here's what filters can't hide real joy. Because genuine happiness doesn't need to prove itself. But fake happiness, it demands attention. You've seen it before, the silence right after the damage is done. Then boom, photos, deep quotes, solo selfies, glow-up narratives. One minute they were burning bridges, the next they're hashtagging healing with someone new, like guilt never knocked on their door. Look again, the smile too wide, the eyes somewhere else, the vibe desperate, because here's the truth, real peace whispers. But insecurity, it screams. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. So no, you don't stalk their story. You don't clap back. You don't perform, you observe. Because true peace doesn't try to convince anyone, it just exists. And the louder someone tries to show they've moved on, the more likely they haven't. Karma doesn't send warnings. It doesn't knock. It arrives in silence when they lay in bed and feel the weight of knowing they lost someone who genuinely cared. Someone who never wanted to see them suffer. And now no partner, no party, no post can drown out the truth screaming from inside. Let them smile for the camera. Because you already know the most exhausting performance in the world is pretending to be at peace. Karma doesn't always come like thunder. Sometimes it starts like erosion, quietly removing the things they thought they'd never lose. So while they're out there faking their glow-up, something else is quietly unfolding, something far more telling than a photo or a smile. Karma doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with quiet subtraction. People often expect karma to crash in like a storm, loud, explosive, dramatic, a devastating breakup, a public embarrassment, a moment of brutal reckoning. But no, karma is far more elegant than that. It doesn't shout, it doesn't throw fits, it simply begins to take. At first it's almost invisible. They barely notice. A friend who used to check in stops replying. A colleague suddenly becomes distant, no longer trusting them with even simple tasks. A dream opportunity slips through their fingers with no real explanation. They shrug it off. Just life, they say. Bad timing, bad luck. They chalk it up to coincidence, but the pattern doesn't break. It continues, and then it continues again, until slowly everything around them starts to unravel. One day they look around and realize they're surrounded by fragments, remnants of what they once dismissed, minimized, or took for granted. Maybe they used to mock you. said you were too sensitive, too emotional, overreacting. But you weren't overreacting, you were reacting with heart, with humanity. You stayed up late texting them through their dark nights. You forgave them time and time again, even when they forgot your worth. You believed in their potential when they didn't even believe in themselves. And what did you get in return? Mockery, dismissive jokes. They rolled their eyes, called you clingy, needy, too soft for this world. To them, your loyalty wasn't special, it was expected. So eventually, you stopped offering. You stopped showing up for someone who never once chose to show up for you. And one quiet day you walked away. At first they felt free. They thought the silence meant peace. But then it started to echo. The messages slowed to nothing. The people they trusted just reflections of themselves, selfish, cold, transactional. And the options they once thought, they had gone. The support they used to get without even asking, vanished. And the comfort of being deeply seen, truly understood by someone who cared, irreplaceable. Because no one can hold the space you once did, especially not someone new, not someone who only knows the version of them that's still pretending they've healed. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one." And that's what karma does. It doesn't punish with pain, it purifies with truth. It strips away everything that doesn't align with the real. When someone mistreats a good person, they aren't just turning on you. They're betraying the part of themselves that had access to something rare, peace, patience, forgiveness, and depth. And karma makes sure they know it, not with disaster, but with a haunting realization. They let go of something real, and now they have to live without it. The rooms they walk into feel colder. The new relationships feel shallower. Even their victories ring hollow, because deep down beneath the surface smiles and carefully curated posts, they know they had something sacred, and they let it slip through careless hands. So let them lose. Let them learn. Let them look around and wonder why nothing feels as safe or as whole as it did when they had you in their corner. Because karma doesn't just take away circumstances, it takes away the version of themselves that existed when they still had your love. And no matter how much they chase it, no matter how many quotes they post or partners they cycle through, they will never, ever feel that kind of peace again. And here's how you'll know. The third silent sign of karma at work is when you realize you still live in their thoughts. They may never say your name, not aloud, not in public, but if you listen closely, you'll hear it. It shows up in cryptic social media captions, vague quotes about betrayal, about loyalty, about cutting off fake people. It appears in conversations that trail off into loaded silences. It's hidden in phrases like, "Some people just don't appreciate what they had," or "Not everyone deserves access to my energy anymore." They're not saying it directly, but they're saying it because you're still there. Not in their words, but in their mind, echoing in every unspoken sentence. So yes, when they post vague quotes or drop cryptic lines, you hear it, you feel it. Because no matter how subtle they try to be, you know what's unsaid often speaks loudest. At first glance, it might seem like just another post, just generic thoughts floating in your feed. But you know better. Because you've studied their silence, you know their voice even when it's dressed in metaphors. You know the rhythm of their guilt. You've been there scrolling casually, tapping through stories, and then boom, one caption hits like a whisper laced with a scream, a quote that sounds almost poetic, but stings like a memory. They didn't tag you. They didn't say your name, but every single word echoes with your presence. It's as if they're throwing a message into the void, hoping you'll see it, but praying you won't think they care. That's not strength. That's not closure. That's a crumbling ego trying to speak through the cracks. Their friends might not notice. The world might scroll right past it, but you notice everything. Because once you loved them enough to hear what they never said out loud. And now those same silences, they're turning on them. The quiet they once used to hide from you is now screaming back at them in the dark. You see, karma doesn't always come as thunder. Sometimes it arrives as obsession thoughts they can't silence, regrets they can't swallow, memories they thought would fade, but now cling to them like shadows. A stoic doesn't post back, doesn't reply with a cleverly veiled quote of their own, because responding gives power. But silence reclaims it. Epictetus once said, "If someone speaks ill of you, live in such a way that no one will believe it. So when they talk around you about you behind your back, don't explain, don't defend, don't respond. Let them carry your name like a ghost haunting their own thoughts, because the more they talk in circles, the more it reveals one thing you left. But they never did. Let them post, let them perform, let them drop half-truths dressed as wisdom wrapped in faux healing. Because the louder they try to convince the world they've moved on, the clearer it becomes that they haven't. You don't need to be in their life to live in their mind. That's karma. And the mind, it's the loudest prison of all, especially when the person they wronged won't even look back. So stay silent. Because once again, silence says everything. When someone betrays a good person, they don't just lose them. They lose the ability to trust anyone who reminds them of that goodness, even themselves. The fourth sign that someone is quietly receiving their karma is this. They begin to stop believing in other people, and little by little, they stop believing in themselves. At first it looks like self-protection. They keep their circle small. They become selective with their energy. They say things like, "I just don't trust people anymore," or "everyone's fake these days." But that isn't strength. It's not wisdom. It's not boundaries. It's fear. A fear that was born in the dark shadow of guilt. You've seen it. They used to be open, laughing easily, trusting freely, speaking without caution. But after what they did, whether to you or to someone else, something shifted. Not loud, not visible, but deep down, something changed. Now they doubt everyone. They suspect betrayal before trust. They overanalyze every word, every pause, every glance, searching for signs that someone might do to them what they once did to you. Why? Because deep down, they know what they're capable of. And when you know the kind of pain you once caused, especially to someone who never deserved it, you start to believe that everyone around you might carry that same potential, and that right there is karma's most intimate punishment. So yes, when someone begins to lose trust in others, and even in themselves, that's no accident. It's karma unraveling them from the inside out. This kind of self-doubt doesn't arrive like thunder. It creeps in quiet but corrosive, an internal erosion that doesn't demand permission. And suddenly, the voice that once boldly declared, "I've got everything under control," starts to whisper something far more frightening. Maybe I'm the problem. And that thought, it's paralyzing. Because once you begin to question yourself, true peace becomes impossible no matter how still the room is, no matter how serene the setting. Seneca once said, "He who does wrong rarely trusts anyone else. because he knows what he is capable of. The Stoics understood this with perfect clarity. Your peace is not external, it's rooted in your conscience. And if your actions go against your own values, you don't just lose people, you lose yourself. That's how karma often shows up. Not through drama, not through scandal, but through quiet fractures in your inner world. A restlessness you can't explain, a tightness in your chest that appears right when life should feel good. A whisper that says, you don't deserve this. Even in moments that seem picture perfect, something inside feels permanently off. Let them sit in that silence. Let them overanalyze every motive. Let them live with the same shadow of suspicion they once cast on you and others. Because karma doesn't always punish with memories, it punishes with mistrust. It replaces peace with paranoia. And the cruelest prison of all, it's not made of concrete. It's made of a conscience that never sleeps. So if they can't trust anymore, don't pity them. Don't chase them. Don't show up just to prove. Not everyone's like that. That's not your job. You were never meant to be the savior of someone who chose destruction. You offered truth. They chose betrayal. Now karma is offering them what they earned, not chaos, not noise, but the quiet, slow collapse of self-trust. Karma doesn't scream. It simply hands you a mirror and introduces you to yourself. The fifth and most undeniable sign that karma is silently doing its work is when life brings them face to face with someone just like them. Not just a bad match, not just a fling that fizzles, but a reflection, a walking, talking mirror of everything they once were to you. And this reflection doesn't show up shouting. No, it shows up charming, sweet, magnetic, just like they once were back when they were reeling you in. At first it feels like destiny. The spark is instant, the chemistry electric. They tell themselves, this is it, I've finally found the one. But what they don't see, at least not yet, is that this isn't love. It's a karmic loop, not designed to show them who they need, but to show them who they've been. And this time, they're not holding the power. Remember how they once left you guessing, how you poured your heart out, only to feel like it was never enough. Now they're the ones refreshing their inbox, waiting for messages that never come, posting for attention, only to be met with silence. They once played hot and cold with your emotions. Now they're in love with someone who burns them with cold silence, then floods them with affection, only to vanish again. They used to laugh at your vulnerability. Now they open up only to be mocked in return. They once threw away your loyalty. Now they're begging for commitment from someone who refuses to offer anything real. At first they rationalize it. They say this person's just complicated or they've got issues. But slowly, a terrifying realization begins to surface quietly in the back of their mind. This is what I did to someone. They won't say it out loud. They might never admit it to a soul, but it haunts them. It shows up in the stillness before sleep, in the quiet after another failed attempt to connect. Because this pain, it's not bad luck. It's not just another failed relationship. It's a pattern, a perfect reflection. And it's karma at its most poetic. When life holds up a mirror and makes them face the pain they once caused, it's not punishment, it's reflection. Because karma doesn't come to destroy, it comes to restore. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. But the universe, it doesn't seek revenge. It seeks balance. And that balance doesn't arrive with chaos. It arrives with clarity. not by hurting them in return, but by giving them a real lived experience of the very pain they once dismissed. And here's the twist. It doesn't come from someone they can predict. It doesn't come from someone they can charm, fix, or control. No, this isn't punishment, it's perspective. Because nothing teaches like experience. No lesson sticks quite like the one that's felt in the bones. They used to laugh at how deeply you cared. Now they cry over someone who couldn't care less. They once made jokes about your needs. Now they're being called too much by someone who withholds even the smallest ounce of affection. They walked away from you like they were untouchable. Now they're the ones begging for someone to stay, to answer, to try. And what do they get in return? A shrug, a cold stare, silence. And in that moment it hits them. Not like lightning, but like slow, relentless rain. Not all at once, but piece by painful piece. They're not just being hurt, they're being reflected. And a mirror never lies. Let them meet their match. Let them feel the confusion, the helplessness, the ache of being discarded, of being seen and used, then dismissed like they never mattered, just like they once did to you. But this time there's no scapegoat, no one to gaslight, no narrative left to twist, because the person on the other end of this heartbreak isn't a monster, it's them, in a different body, with the same behavior. That's not revenge, that's return. Karma doesn't scream, it doesn't throw punches, it doesn't burn things down, it reflects, silently, perfectly. So when they finally ask themselves, why is this happening to me? The answer is simple. You're not being punished. You're being shown. That's the difference. And that's why you don't need to fight. Not with words, not with posts, not with petty energy. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove your side. You don't need to beg anyone to see your worth. Karma doesn't need your help. It only needs one thing from you: your silence, your strength, your refusal to sink to their level no matter how tempting. Because while they're still trapped in the same cycle of pride, lies and manipulation, you've already stepped into something else entirely, clarity. That's what karma is really about. Not just what happens to them, but what happens to you. When you truly let go, you stop needing closure because peace becomes your closure. You stop needing justice because time becomes your witness. And you stop needing them to feel your pain because life always teaches the lesson better than you ever could. Your role isn't to punish, it's to rise. To become so grounded, so steady, so deeply rooted in your own power that no one, no ghost, no memory can ever shake your peace again. That is the Stoic way. We don't curse our enemies. We don't chase validation. We don't scream for justice. We simply walk forward, quietly, powerfully, with the kind of discipline karma respects the most. So if you're watching this, and someone's hurt you, someone who never said sorry, someone who pretended they did nothing wrong, someone who moved on like you didn't even matter, let them. Because while they may look free, they're quietly haunted by the one thing they can't silence, the truth. And here's something to remember. People who lie to others, they sleep just fine. But people who lie to themselves, they don't sleep at all. If this message resonated with you, don't waste another second chasing the past. Instead, comment below. Share the one line that hit you hardest. Let someone else know they're not alone. So yes, let them carry the weight of the truth. Because in the end, people aren't haunted by what you say. They're haunted by what they can't unsee in themselves. And while they wrestle with that, you walk forward alone maybe, but not empty. You're walking the higher path now, the one paved not with noise or revenge, but with silence and power. If you're on that path, if you're choosing clarity over chaos, growth over gossip, then subscribe to Here. We don't just talk about healing. We train for it. We don't react. We lead. We build a mind that thinks clearly, a heart that stays steady, and a spirit that cannot be shaken no matter who tries to pull us down. We build clarity. We build discipline. We build unshakable peace. Let karma do what karma does, it always will. And as for you, you keep rising, keep building, keep becoming someone they'll never get close to again. Not because you hate them, but because you've outgrown them. That's not revenge. That's evolution. And trust this, the world may not say a word, but it watches. Because growth like that, it makes noise even in silence.